This week on Canadian Whitetail.
Nearly a decade of history with one specific buck. A deer that we've known almost as long as my daughter, who's come to help set up. The start of a very promising season for Mike, with a very frustrating finish with no shot. But in the end, the old buck that we call Ted, though not as planned, still ends up dead. Over the years, a lot of people have asked why. Why all the time? The work? Why has a passion transformed into a lifestyle? Our family's lifestyle? Why does it mean so much? The answer is so simple. All of that work, the scouting, the preparation, is for two reasons. To share the knowledge, the tradition, the love of deer, from those weathered with experience, to the next generation to carry. The other reason is even simpler. The work is to fuel that yearning desire, the longing for those split-second moments when all of that work comes together. Because those few times in a lifetime that it does, you no longer have to ask why when you experience moments like these with the biggest wild whitetails to ever walk. I mean, he's a gorgeous deer that I couldn't be happier to take. He's just beautiful. What a fitting end to an incredible season.
Dean Partridge's Canadian Whitetail is proudly brought to you by Limb Saver, products that work. Ozonics, undetectable, undeniable. Elite Archery, the world's most shootable bow. Under Armour, go where you don't belong. Excalibur Crossbow, the most trusted crossbows on the planet. Big & J long range attractants. The aroma is super strong. The range is super long. Central boiler, outdoor wood furnaces. Performance and value by design. Nocturnal lighted nocks. Switch on accuracy. The Whitetail Institute of North America. Slick Trick, the no excuses broadhead. Bog Pod, hunting rests, bipods, and tripods. Glendale, the biggest and toughest 3D targets in the universe. And by Dual. Get real with Dual game calls.
Every hunt is different, every deer is different, and they seldom, if ever, follow our plan. And this week's episode features a deer that definitely did not follow our plan, or any plan for that matter. And he's a buck that we simply called Ted, a uniquely framed 5x5 that we had been fortunate enough to watch for the last several years.
The buck that we called Ted had been around since even before my son was born. Every year that he survived and that we found him again was like seeing an old friend. And this would be the first year actually hunting Ted. Early that summer, Steve and I headed out to set up for Ted, this time with a new head guide to help, my daughter Taylor. Clearing this blind forest seems so minimal, but it's so important to have a quiet place for your feet come season.
Well, we just got finished brushing in our flax field stand. They're just kind of doing the last little bits there. And we moved it this year because there's a 5x5 here. He's been here for the 8 years that we've hunted here. This is the first year we've targeted him. And that's why we had to move, because in the past we weren't set up specifically for that deer. So this spring and summer we had trail cameras on this flax field on the south side, the north side, and one right in the middle. And we put Big & J out, and judging by the pictures we get and when we get from them, the south side is by far the better side to set up on. So that's why we came in here, got this blind ready. And he's a pretty awesome deer. And the age class is incredible alone. So there's not a lot of bush here. To the south we've got a lot of channels and fingers of bush that run south. Straight east, there's fingers of bush that run down into a big coulee into the river hill. And then on the south side here, we've got about a 100-acre piece of woods that comes straight out into this flax field. So we call this the flax field spot because that's what it was nearly a decade ago when we started hunting here, and it's flax field again this year, so the name suits it once again.
With our Big and J cube out and our trail camera set up, well, the next time that we returned, we were once again greeted with photos of Ted. Now in 2016, Ted looked his best ever. Long beams, wide, huge D3s. We had been right. This year of any was the year to target Ted.
This segment of Canadian Whitetail has been brought to you by Under Armour. Go where you don't belong. This segment has been brought to you by Hoyman. Portable, gas-free, and effective. Clearing shooting lanes has never been easier than with the new 40-volt battery-powered lightweight saw. Hoyman, create your window of opportunity.
Set up and ready, and the buck that we called Ted regularly on our trail camera, Mike and I were headed in, hoping for an encounter.
Good friend Mike Sutherland had been watching Ted with us throughout the summer and decided this would be the deer that he would hunt when time from work was available, and we headed in with high hopes of an early season encounter. Once in and settled, it doesn't take long for the first deer of the evening. This oddly framed young buck, who had been a regular bachelor with Ted throughout the summer. However, this young buck would be the highlight of our evening, as well as the next couple of days. Day 4 again was low on deer activity, as were the next several days that Mike hunted Ted. Now 9 days in, and no encounter with Ted had us wondering. He was still on the camera regularly, but just after last light, and we began to wonder about changing our setup.
With the season dragging on, Mike had been hunting Ted with every available opportunity without much luck. And now with an early season snowstorm, well, Mike's luck was about to change. For the better or worse, well, that's all a matter of perspective.
An October blizzard definitely had the deer moving, and we were hoping that this would get Ted on his feet and by us earlier. As the evening played on, nearly all of the deer were accounted for, except Ted. And time, well, with daylight fading and work commitments for Mike to return to for the rest of the season, well, time was running out. With the evening slipping away while watching the young buck, we began packing up, when we finally got a look at Ted. Unfortunately, as he fed towards us, there was nothing we could do. Too dark for me to film, and too dark for Mike to shoot. We were simply pinned down to watch and wait for him to go. Even with him being at just 18 yards, the best look at him that we had were the photos the trail camera was taking. A frustrating feeling with Mike's last chance to hunt Ted for the year, and we were forced to just watch him walk away.
This segment has been brought to you by Central Boiler Outdoor Wood Furnaces. A central boiler easily connects to your existing forced air, in-floor radiant, baseboard, or dual heat system to heat your entire home and domestic water. Central Boiler, performance and value by design. This segment of Canadian Whitetail is brought to you by Nocturnal Lighted Nocks. Nocturnal Lighted Nocks, string activated, simple, switch on accuracy, and let it glow.
For the last week of the season, Mike was back at work and unable to hunt, leaving me with no one to film. And with a week left and some time on my hands, I headed in to check a trail camera and top up the Big and J at one of my favorite spots 4 miles away from where we were hunting Ted. And on that card was one blurry photo of a deer that I didn't recognize. I had not hunted for myself very much all fall. Rather, I'd spent that time trying to relocate what was supposed to be my target deer for the year after making a colossal mistake on him early in the season. But that's an entirely different topic for another episode. And with the season winding down and with no one to film, I decided to head into that blind, hoping to have a look at this new stranger buck to see what he might be.
Late season rut strangers on our trail cameras are nothing new, and always exciting to investigate. However, usually by the time that we notice that they've been around, it's too late. But I headed in anyway, if nothing else, just to enjoy the deer woods.
We're in settled back at the bins, and about we're in here, we want to have a look at him. He might be down here running does. The bucks the last few days seem to be locked down with does. A lot of our stands have really slowed down, and the only bucks that we've been seeing are the young ones, but that's got to break, and when it does break, they're going to be hitting the feed, and they're going to be looking for those last does that are hitting the Big and J, and trying to pick up any last does that are still in the heat and going through cycles. So it's nice to be back, and hopefully we see a few deer.
Early on, the deer began to move, but I'd never have guessed the encounter that was coming my way.
Welcome to this week's Canadian Whitetail Scouting segment. Locate, learn, set up, hunt. Brought to you by Big and J Long Range Attractants. The aroma is super strong. The range is super long.
You can spend a lifetime learning about whitetails, their behavior, scouting, and hunting tactics. But there's one aspect of deer and deer hunting that you can't learn anywhere, but you have to be ready for. And that's luck. And that's right, I just said luck. A lot of people find that surprising coming from me because everything we do is very strategic, planned out, even down to a specific deer and what we might do to hunt that deer. But in the deer woods, not everything always goes according to the plan. And obviously you can't plan on luck, but one thing that we've seen through decades of deer hunting is that you should definitely be ready for it. And luck is not necessarily the right definition. It's being in the deer woods. You're not always in a stand that you know there's a giant there, but that doesn't mean one can't show up. You don't want to spend a whole season chasing a ghost that you don't even know exists, but if you're in stand, in a blind, you want to be ready, because at any time, anything can happen.
We're sitting here for a deer that we've got like a decade of history with.
Yeah.
And we just shot a big mature deer that I don't believe we've ever seen in our life, Steve.
No.
Something does happen, you want to be ready. You don't want your bow leaning against a blind or hanging in the tree. You want to be ready to capitalize on any opportunity you can get in the deer woods. Now, if that opportunity is after years and years of scouting and hunting a specific buck and you finally get that chance, that's great. And if that opportunity is in the rut with a stranger buck walking in that you don't know, that you quickly recognize as a shooter, again, there's nothing wrong with that either. You want to be ready. Because at the end of the day, if you're heading home with a big mature whitetail in the back of your truck, well, that was the plan in the first place. And that's your Canadian Whitetail Scouting segment for the week.
This week's Canadian Whitetail Scouting segment has been brought to you by Big & J Long Range Attractants. This segment of Canadian Whitetail is brought to you by Wild Edge and the ultimate climbing system, the Step Ladder. Safely design your climb in any tree, anywhere, with the most versatile, lightweight, and compact climbing system, the Step Ladder.
Warm and settled in my heater bodysuit, curious if the stranger buck from the trail camera would be cruising for does. I was about to have an unlikely encounter, right at last light. At last light, a buck emerged at the far end, with a big frame. I suspected this was a stranger buck from the trail camera. Though when he stopped and looked my way, I instantly knew that the stranger buck, that one blurry trail camera photo, was of none other than Ted, nearly 4 miles from his home, at a spot that we'd never seen him before. I also knew that if given the chance, I would definitely take this buck. It's starting to get late. I saw myself, so it was hard to get over and see the monitor and see what the footage is, but that's a big deer. Holy smokes. After tirelessly reviewing the poor footage, we knew the shot was good, but after hours of searching and dead flashlights, we decided to return at first light.
And we looked last night here for long enough to kill 4 flashlights.
Yep.
And we could not figure out which way he went. We looked at the shot, we knew the deer was dead, and we ran out of lights. We decided we just have to come back at first light. And it goes to show that when you're in this thick brush, how deceiving it can be. Because we came back this morning, and from where we left him last night and where we searched through this brush, we could see the tips of his horns right there. So he was right on the edge of the buckbrush that we were searching through, right? Just a cool old buck. I mean, this year we had bigger scoring deer to hunt, but we didn't have a deer to hunt with a bigger story. And for a deer to survive like that out here is just incredible. He's seen it all. I mean, he's as old as the hills around here, and he's got the scars to prove it. He's a pretty cool deer. The original spot we set up for him, we actually shot him between 3 and 4 miles away from there. And that's just what happens in the rut. The original spot we set up, Steve and I went in there, and actually my 10-year-old daughter kind of took the lead and got the blind set up. So that was pretty neat, and I mean, he's a gorgeous deer that I couldn't be happier to take. I mean, he's just beautiful. What a fitting end to an incredible season. It's often a love-hate relationship. Sometimes it can be so frustrating that deer just won't cooperate. But as frustrating as it is, it's also a big part of what makes it so much fun, what keeps a person interested, and what keeps us searching for these bucks. And we almost always find that in the end it'll work out one way or another if you put your time in. And I couldn't be happier to have taken the deer that we call Ted, just an awesome old buck. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Canadian Whitetail.
Closed captioning for Canadian Whitetail is provided by huntsask.ca, your information source for Canada's best whitetail hunting. Hunt Saskatchewan, Canada. Canadian Whitetail has also been brought to you by the Heater Bodysuit, #1 in cold weather hunting gear, Black Eagle Arrows, superior carbon technology, Scott Archery, and CBE Bow Sights. Canadian Whitetail has also been brought to you by these fine sponsors. For exclusive content, follow Dean and the team on Facebook, as well as on Instagram and Twitter @WhitetailDean. To view all past and present episodes of Canadian Whitetail, as well as new original content, visit us on our YouTube and Carbon TV channels. For Canadian Whitetail gear and apparel, visit CanadianWhitetailTV.com.